Thanks for being here. We need to discuss something that's making a lot of people miserable in their own homes. Neighbors who have no boundaries because you've never set any. Here's the part nobody's talking about. This didn't happen by accident. You created this situation by saying yes to every single request for years. I'm talking to the person whose lawnmower has been borrowed for 6 months and is probably broken by now. The person who's become the free neighborhood babysitter. The person whose tools, equipment, and time are treated like community property. This affects millions of people who can't enjoy their own homes because they're constantly interrupted by neighbors who only show up when they need something. And society tells you that's what neighbors do for each other, but it's not mutual, is it? It's all one way. So here's what I need you to understand. You didn't end up being the neighborhood doormat by chance. You trained everyone around you that you're incapable of saying no. Let me show you exactly what this looks like. It's Saturday morning, 9 a.m. You're finally having a relaxing weekend. You've got your coffee, you're in your pajamas, you're planning to do absolutely nothing today except maybe read a book and enjoy some peace and quiet. You've been looking forward to this for weeks. Work's been stressful. You've been running around doing errands and obligations every weekend for the past month, and you finally carved out one weekend to just rest. There's a knock on your door. You look through the window, and it's your neighbor from 3 houses down, the one you barely know, the one whose name you can't even remember half the time, the one who only talks to you when they need something. You already know what's coming, but you open the door anyway because you can't help yourself. They say, "Hey, I'm so sorry to bother you, but my lawnmower broke and I really need to mow my lawn today because my in-laws are coming tomorrow and you know how that is. And I was wondering if I could borrow yours. I'll have it back in a couple hours, I promise." And what do you say? You say yes. Even though the last time they borrowed something from you, your pressure washer 2 months ago, they returned it 3 weeks later, covered in mud and broken, and you had to spend $150 getting it repaired, and they never offered to pay for it, even though they've never once offered to help you with anything, never offered to mow your lawn when you were sick, never offered to loan you anything, never even brought over cookies at Christmas, even though you wanted to use your own lawnmower later today to finally tackle your own yard that's been getting overgrown. You say, "Sure, no problem, let me go get it for you," and you go into your garage, pull out your expensive lawnmower that you take good care of, and hand it over to someone who's basically a stranger. They say, "Thanks, you're a lifesaver, I really appreciate this," and they start walking away. And you stand there and you don't say anything about when they'll return it. You don't say anything about taking care of it. You don't say anything about the pressure washer they broke. You don't ask them to sign anything or leave a deposit or give you any assurance at all. You just watch them walk away with your $400 lawnmower, and you absolutely know in your gut that you're not going to see that mower for weeks, maybe months. And when you finally do get it back, if you get it back, something's going to be wrong with it. The blade's going to be dull. The oil's going to be low. Something's going to be broken. And you're not going to say anything about that either. But here's what really happened in that interaction that you need to understand. You just taught them once again that your property is available whenever they want it. You taught them that your time and your plans don't matter compared to their convenience. You taught them that they can show up unannounced on a Saturday morning, interrupt your peaceful day, ask for whatever they need, and you'll give it to them with a smile and no questions asked. You taught them that there are no consequences for returning things broken or late. You reinforced the pattern that's been established over years of you saying yes when you desperately wanted to say no. Or here's another scenario that plays out every single weekend in neighborhoods everywhere. It's Friday evening, 6:30 p.m. You just got home from an exhausting week at work. Your boss has been on your case. You've been working late every night. You're drained. You're looking forward to a quiet weekend where you can just decompress and recover. You're planning to order takeout, watch some TV, maybe take a long bath and go to bed early. Your phone rings. You look at the caller ID and it's your next door neighbor, the one with the 3 young kids. You already know what this call is about before you even answer, but you answer anyway. They say, "Hey, I know this is really last minute and I'm so sorry, but Tom and I just got invited to dinner tonight by his boss and it's kind of important for his career. And our regular babysitter just canceled on us. And I know it's Friday night, but is there any way you could watch the kids for a few hours? We'll be back by 10, I promise." And you pause. You really, really don't want to do this. You're exhausted. You've been watching their kids almost every weekend for the past 3 months. Every Friday or Saturday night, they have some event or dinner or night out, and they call you, and you always say yes. They've never once offered to reciprocate. They've never offered to watch your dog when you go out of town. They've never even offered to pay you. Not once in 3 months have they handed you a $20 bill or brought you a bottle of wine or said thank you in any meaningful way. But you physically cannot get the word no out of your mouth. You open your mouth to say it, you want to say it, you know you should say it, but what comes out is, yeah, I guess that's fine. And they say, "Oh my God, thank you so much. You're the best neighbor anyone could ask for. We'll drop them off in 15 minutes. Is that okay?" And they sound so relieved and grateful that you feel like you can't back out now. So you say, "Yeah, that's fine," even though it's not fine. It's not fine at all. And they say, "Great, see you in a few." And they hang up before you can change your mind or set any boundaries. 15 minutes later, their 3 kids are running through your house. Kids you don't really know that well. Kids who don't listen to you because you're not their parent and they know it. The parents are standing in your doorway, all dressed up for their fancy dinner, looking excited and rushed. They hand you a bag with some snacks and say, "Bedtime is 8:30. There are some crackers in here if they get hungry. Thanks again. You're a lifesaver. We'll be back around 10." And they rush out before you can ask any questions or establish any rules or tell them that you're actually really tired and didn't want to do this. You spend your entire Friday night, the one night you had to yourself to rest, feeding kids that aren't yours, breaking up fights over toys, dealing with crying and whining, negotiating bedtime with children who don't want to listen to you. One kid spills juice all over your carpet. Another one breaks a picture frame. The third one won't stop crying for their parents. You're exhausted and stressed, and this is absolutely not how you wanted to spend your evening. They don't get home until 11:30 p.m., not 10 like they promised. 11:30, an hour and a half late. They don't call to tell you they're running late. They don't apologize when they finally show up. They just breeze in, a little tipsy from wine, talking loudly about what a great dinner it was. They scoop up their sleeping kids, say, "Thanks so much. We really appreciate it. You're the best," and head toward the door. You want to say something. You want to ask them to clean up the juice stain. You want to tell them they were late. You want to ask when they're going to reciprocate or at least offer to pay you, but you don't say any of that. You just say, "No problem, glad I could help," and you close the door behind them. And you're standing there in your living room at 11:30 on a Friday night, your carpet's stained, your house is a mess, you're exhausted, you're resentful, you're angry at them for taking advantage, but mostly you're angry at yourself for saying yes again, for not setting boundaries, for not saying no. You wonder how you ended up spending another Friday night being a free babysitter for people who don't even really appreciate you. But let me ask you something. Whose fault is that really? You're going to want to say it's their fault for asking, for taking advantage, for being inconsiderate and showing up late and never reciprocating. And yeah, they're not winning any awards for being great neighbors. But here's the brutal truth. they asked, because you've never said no. They keep asking because you keep saying yes. They don't offer to pay because you've never required payment or even suggested it. They don't reciprocate because you've never expected reciprocation. They show up late because there are no consequences when they do. You created this dynamic. You trained them over months and years that your time is free and always available. You taught them that you're a doormat. Here's what I need you to understand. Your neighbors aren't walking all over you because they're terrible people. I mean, maybe some of them are. Maybe some of them are genuinely selfish users who would take advantage of anyone, but most of them are just responding to what you've taught them. You've taught them through consistent behavior over a long period of time that you don't have boundaries, that your property is basically community property available for anyone to use, that your time is everyone's time, that the word no doesn't exist in your vocabulary, that you'll say yes to literally any request, no matter how inconvenient or unfair. And they've learned that lesson perfectly. They're just doing what you've trained them to do. Think about this carefully and honestly. When's the last time one of these neighbors knocked on your door just to say hi, just to check on you, just to see how you're doing, just to chat and be friendly with no agenda? Never, right? It's never happened. They only show up when they need something, when they need to borrow something, when they need you to do something for them, when they have a problem they want you to solve, when they're in a bind and need someone to bail them out. That's not friendship. That's not community. That's not what good neighbors do. That's a one-sided user relationship, and you're allowing it to continue. You're enabling it. You're participating in it. You're making it possible. You know what I'm seeing all the time? People who are absolutely miserable in their own homes because they can't set boundaries with neighbors. They can't relax in their own backyard on a summer afternoon because they're worried someone's going to come over and ask for something or want to chat for an hour when you're trying to read. They dread hearing a knock on the door because they know it's going to be another favor request. They see their neighbor walking toward their house and they literally hide. They duck down below the window. They don't answer the door. They turn off the lights and pretend they're not home. They've turned their own home, the place that should be their sanctuary and refuge, into a place of stress and anxiety because they've made themselves available for everyone else's needs while completely ignoring their own needs and boundaries, and you're resentful about all of it. You complain to your spouse about how your neighbors use you. You vent to your coworkers during lunch about the neighbor who never returned your mower. You post on social media about being the neighborhood free babysitter. You talk about how inconsiderate they are, how they never reciprocate, how they take advantage of your kindness, how they don't respect you or your property or your time. But you don't actually do anything about it. You don't say no. You don't set boundaries. You don't have a direct conversation with them about their behavior. You don't tell them that what they're doing is unacceptable. You just keep saying yes to every request and getting more and more resentful with each passing week. Here's what you need to face head on. You didn't end up in this situation by accident or bad luck. This is the direct result of thousands of small choices you've made over the course of years. Every single time a neighbor asked you for something and you said yes when you desperately wanted to say no. Every single time you loaned something out and didn't ask when they'd return it or establish any terms. Every single time they returned something broken or damaged or late and you said absolutely nothing about it. Every single time you agreed to help with something even though it was incredibly inconvenient or completely unfair, every single time you put their needs and comfort ahead of your own. You were training them, you were teaching them step by step that you're incapable of saying no. that you're available whenever they need something, that there are no consequences for taking advantage of your kindness, that your boundaries don't exist because you don't enforce them. So here's where you are right now. You've got a neighbor who's had your expensive lawnmower for 6 months and you have no idea if it even works anymore. Another neighbor who treats you like a free on-demand babysitting service every single weekend. Another neighbor who parks in your driveway whenever it's convenient for them because they have too many cars. Another neighbor who borrowed your ladder and your power tools months ago and you have no idea where they are anymore or if you'll ever see them again. And you're absolutely exhausted and resentful from being everyone's go-to person for favors that never, ever get returned or reciprocated. And you're confused about how you got here. You genuinely don't understand it. You thought being a good neighbor meant being helpful and nice. You thought saying yes to requests made people like you and respect you and see you as a valued member of the community, but it didn't, did it? They don't respect you at all. They use you. They take advantage of you. They see you as a resource to be exploited, not as a person to be valued. There's a massive difference between being respected and being used. And you've confused the two for so long that you don't even know what real, healthy, reciprocal, neighborly relationships look like anymore. Let me break this down even further so you really understand what's happening. Being a good neighbor means being kind, considerate, and helpful when it's reasonable and reciprocal. It means lending a hand in genuine emergencies. It means being friendly and respectful of each other's property and privacy. It means being considerate about noise and parking and maintaining your property. It means waving hello and maybe having a friendly chat occasionally. It means helping each other out in ways that are mutual and balanced. But being a good neighbor absolutely does not mean being available 24/7 for every request that comes your way. It doesn't mean loaning out your expensive property indefinitely with no terms or accountability. It doesn't mean providing free services constantly without any reciprocation or compensation. It doesn't mean allowing people to take advantage of your kindness and generosity without ever giving anything back. It doesn't mean sacrificing your own needs, time, and peace for the convenience of people who don't actually care about you. But that's exactly what you've been doing for years. You've been confusing being nice with being a doormat. You've been confusing being helpful with being used. You think if you just keep saying yes, keep being helpful, keep being available, keep being accommodating, eventually people will appreciate you, eventually they'll reciprocate, eventually they'll see what a good neighbor and good person you are, and they'll treat you with the same kindness and consideration and respect. But that's not what happened, is it? That's not how human nature works. The more you give, the more they take. The more available you make yourself, the more they expect from you. The more you tolerate, the more they push. You've created a monster, and now you don't know how to stop feeding it or how to get out of this trap you've built for yourself. Here's what really kills me about this entire situation. You complain about it constantly to anyone who will listen, but you absolutely refuse to change anything about your behavior. You tell your spouse how much your neighbors use you. You vent to your friends about the guy who never returned your mower. You complain online about being the unpaid neighborhood babysitter. You talk endlessly about how frustrated and resentful you are. But when the next request comes, and it will come, probably today or tomorrow, what are you going to do? You're going to say yes again. You're going to loan out something else. You're going to agree to watch their kids again. You're going to give them exactly what they want. Why? Because you're absolutely terrified of saying no. You're scared they'll think you're mean or selfish. You're worried about creating conflict. You're afraid they'll get angry or upset or talk about you to other neighbors. You're terrified they'll think you're a bad neighbor or a difficult person. Let me tell you something you desperately need to hear. You can't have it both ways. You can't say yes to every single request and then be angry and resentful that people keep asking you for things. You can't make yourself constantly available and accommodating and then complain that people take advantage of your availability. You can't loan out your property without setting any terms or boundaries or timelines and then be surprised and hurt when things don't get returned or get returned broken. This is a pattern and you know it. You've been living this exact same pattern for years, maybe decades, and absolutely nothing's going to change until you make the decision to change it, until you decide you're done being the neighborhood doormat. So here's the deal. Your neighbors aren't really the problem here. You are. I know that's incredibly hard to hear. I know you want to blame them for being inconsiderate or selfish or for taking advantage, and maybe they are those things. Maybe they're not great people, but they're only able to do what they do because you allow it, because you enable it, because you make it possible. You're the one saying yes. You're the one handing over your property. You're the one agreeing to watch their kids. You're the one who won't set boundaries or establish terms or enforce consequences. This is completely on you. Think carefully about what you're really afraid of here. You're scared that if you say no, they'll get mad at you. They'll think you're mean or selfish or a bad neighbor. They might talk about you to other neighbors and damage your reputation in the community. They might not like you anymore. They might exclude you from neighborhood events. And that fear, that deep, powerful fear of being disliked or judged or talked about, is completely controlling your entire life and all your decisions. You would literally rather be used and exhausted and resentful and miserable than risk someone being upset with you or thinking badly of you. You'd rather give away your time, your property, your money, your peace, your weekends than deal with even the possibility of conflict or confrontation. But let me ask you this very directly. How's that working for you? You're miserable. You're resentful. You can't relax in your own home. You dread seeing your neighbors. You hide when you see them coming toward your house. You don't answer the door when they knock. You let their calls go to voicemail. Is that really better than just saying no? Is being secretly resentful and avoiding people really better than being openly honest about your boundaries and limitations? Is hiding in your own home really preferable to having one uncomfortable conversation? Here's what's actually happening that you refuse to see. You're not building good, healthy, reciprocal relationships with your neighbors by always saying yes to everything. You're building resentment. You're building one-sided user relationships where they take constantly and you give constantly and nothing is mutual or reciprocal or balanced. And deep down, if you're really honest with yourself, you don't even actually like most of these people. You resent them, you avoid them, you complain about them. You don't trust them with your property because they've proven they don't take care of it, but you keep pretending everything's fine. You keep putting on a smile. You keep saying yes because you're too scared to be honest, too scared to set boundaries, too scared to risk them not liking you. Let me show you exactly what happens when you keep going down this path. I worked with someone a while back. We'll call her Linda. Linda lived in her neighborhood for 8 years. For 8 full years, she said yes to absolutely every neighbor request. She watched kids constantly, sometimes multiple families in the same weekend. She loaned out tools and equipment, lawn mowers, power washers, ladders, you name it. She helped neighbors with projects, running errands, dealing with emergencies, whatever they needed. She was the neighborhood helper, the go-to person, the one everyone called. She never said no. Not one single time in 8 years did she turn down a request. And you know what happened? Her neighbors didn't appreciate her. They didn't value her. They didn't respect her. They used her like a free service. They only knocked on her door when they needed something, never just to be friendly or check in. When Linda actually needed help, when her car broke down in the winter and she needed a jump, when she had surgery and needed someone to pick up groceries for her, when her husband was in the hospital and she was overwhelmed, not a single neighbor showed up, not one. Nobody offered to help, nobody brought over a meal, nobody checked on her, nothing. Because the relationship was never actually mutual. It was always completely one way. They took and she gave. That's all it ever was. That's all they thought it was. And Linda was absolutely devastated. She couldn't believe that after 8 years of being the good neighbor, of helping everyone, of always being available, of never saying no, that nobody was there when she actually needed help for the first time. But I asked her a very direct question, Linda. In those 8 years, did you ever actually ask any of them for help? Did you ever tell them you needed something? Did you ever make yourself vulnerable and admit you couldn't handle something alone? No, she didn't. Not once. Because she didn't want to be a burden. She didn't want to seem needy or dependent. She didn't want to inconvenience anyone. So she gave and gave and gave for 8 solid years and never asked for a single thing in return. And then she was shocked, genuinely shocked, when nobody reciprocated or showed up for her. You either get it or you don't. Either you understand right now that you're actively creating this dynamic by never setting boundaries, or you don't understand and you're going to keep doing the same thing. Either you're willing to get uncomfortable and start saying no and enforcing boundaries, or you're not willing and you're going to stay exactly where you are. But you absolutely cannot keep doing what you're doing and expect different results. That's the definition of insanity. You teach people how to treat you, and you've taught your neighbors very clearly and consistently over a long period of time that you're a doormat, that you can't say no, that you have no boundaries, that your time and property are free for the taking whenever they want. So what does actual change look like? Let me be very, very specific here so you know exactly what to do. Your neighbor comes over and asks to borrow your lawnmower. You look them in the eye and you say, "No, I need it today." They look surprised because you always say yes. They say, "Oh, well, maybe I could borrow it tomorrow then." You say firmly, "No, I don't loan out my lawnmower anymore." They look genuinely confused now. They say, "But you let Steve borrow it just last month." You say, "I did. And he returned it broken and never offered to fix it or replace it. So I don't loan out my lawnmower anymore, period." And then you stop talking. You don't apologize for your decision. You don't give a long explanation. You don't offer alternatives or suggestions. You just say no, and you stand there calmly and you wait. And they're going to push back because they're not used to hearing no from you. They're going to say, "Come on, I promise I'll take really good care of it," or "I really need it. My lawn looks terrible," or "I thought we were neighbors who help each other out." And you look at them calmly and you say, "I understand you need it." The answer is still no. That's it. You don't defend your decision. You don't justify it. You don't give them reasons they can argue with. You just calmly repeat the answer is no, and you stop engaging with their attempts to change your mind. Your neighbor calls you Friday afternoon and asks you to watch their kids Friday night. You take a breath and you say, "No, that doesn't work for me." They say, "Oh, okay, well, what about Saturday afternoon then?" You say clearly, "No, I'm not available to babysit this weekend." They sound confused and say, "Oh, is everything okay?" You usually help us out, and you say, "Everything's fine, I'm just not available for babysitting anymore. You'll need to make other arrangements." And when they start asking why, or trying to guilt you, or saying they're really in a bind, you don't engage with any of it. You say, "I understand that's difficult, I'm not available, you'll need to find someone else." And you get off the phone. You don't let them talk you into it. You don't let them make you feel guilty. You end the conversation. Your neighbor parks in your driveway for the 3rd time this week. You don't let it slide this time. You walk outside and you say firmly, "You need to move your car out of my driveway right now." They say, "Oh, I'm just running inside for a minute. I'll move it soon." You say, "No, you need to move it right now. This is my property." They look annoyed and say, "Seriously? It's just for a few minutes." You say, "Yes, seriously. Move your car right now or I'll have it towed." And you stand there and you wait until they actually move it. You don't back down. You don't apologize for enforcing your very reasonable boundary. You don't feel bad about it. It's your driveway, your property. Your neighbor has had your power drill for 3 months. You've had enough. You go over and knock on their door. When they answer, you say directly, "I need my power drill back today." They say, "Oh yeah, I've been meaning to return that. Let me go find it." You say, "Great, I'll wait right here." And you literally stand there on their doorstep and wait while they go look for it. You don't say, "Oh, just bring it over later whenever you get a chance." You don't make it easy or convenient for them. You stand right there and you wait till they come back and hand it to you. Here's what's absolutely guaranteed to happen. When you start doing this, your neighbors are going to be shocked. They're going to push back. Some of them are going to act confused or hurt or offended. Some of them are going to get openly angry. They might talk about you to other neighbors. They might say you've changed or you're not as nice as you used to be or you're being difficult and unreasonable. And you're going to be so tempted to cave. You're going to feel guilty. You're going to feel like maybe you're being too harsh. You're going to want to go back to saying yes just to avoid all the conflict and discomfort and judgment. Don't do it. Sit with the discomfort. Let them be upset. Let them talk about you. Let them be confused. Their reaction to your boundaries is absolutely not your problem. Your job is not to manage their feelings or make sure they're always happy with you or like you. Your job is to protect your time, your property, your peace, and your sanity. And here's what you really need to brace yourself for. Some of these neighbors are going to completely disappear from your life when you start setting boundaries. The ones who were only in your life because they could use you, they're going to find someone else to use. Someone else who can't say no. Someone else who's a doormat. And you might feel hurt by that. You might feel like it proves you were right to keep saying yes, but actually, it proves the complete opposite. It proves they were never real friends or good neighbors. They were users, parasites. And when you stop being useful to them, when you stop letting them take advantage, they moved on to the next target. Good, let them go. Those aren't relationships worth keeping or mourning. But here's the interesting and hopeful part. The neighbors who are actually decent people, who actually value you as a person and not just as a resource, will respect your boundaries. They might be surprised at first because they're so used to you saying yes to absolutely everything, but they'll adjust. They'll stop asking, or they'll ask much less often. And when they do ask, they'll actually reciprocate. They'll offer to help you back. Because good people respect boundaries. They understand fairness and reciprocity. Users and parasites get angry when you set boundaries because it interferes with their ability to exploit you. So here's the bottom line. Your neighbors will continue to use you as long as you continue to let them. Nothing changes until you learn to say no. This is on you. What are you gonna do about it? If this hit home, drop a comment and tell me what's one neighbor request you need to say no to this week. And if you found value in this, hit that like button and subscribe because we upload daily with real talk about real problems. Now get out there and start saying no.